So chapter 8, in the previous chapters, we covered the 64 items of devotional service. So the 64 principles of bhakti were being discussed. And as I had mentioned to you, in the 64, some were rules and some were regulations. Some were things to be done and some were things not to be done. Rules are things to be done, regulations are things not to be done. So we primarily discussed the rules in the previous chapters. And so today, and in chapter 8, Rupa Goswami discusses things that are not to be done. That is, offenses to be avoided. Here, the 19th item of devotional service, which is the 19th item, carefully avoiding the various offenses in chanting the holy name of the Lord or in worshiping the deity in the temple, is described. So this was just one principle in that list, and Rupa Goswami really expands on it. 32 offenses are listed from the supplementary Vedic literature and others from the Vara Purana. The 10 offenses against the holy name are described in the Padma Purana. So once again, the topic of this chapter 8 is item 19, offenses against the name and the deity. This is the 19th one of Rupa Goswami, which says, one should carefully avoid the various offenses in chanting the holy name of the Lord or in worshiping the deity in the temple. So this is the 19th principle. And now Rupa Goswami emphasizes or expands on this, and he begins by first discussing offenses to the deity. Rupa Goswami says, one should not enter the temple of the deity in a car or palanquin or with shoes on the feet. So no matter how great a person may be, when they go to the deity in front of in the temple, they should go as a pauper, as a humble person, because in front of the Lord, everyone is the same, everyone is poor. One should not fail to observe the various festivals for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such as Janmashtami and Ratha Yatra. So tomorrow actually is the Ratha Yatra festival in Puri, which is now being celebrated all over the world at ISKCON temples around the world. And some devotees actually today have gone for a Ratha Yatra festival in Indianapolis. Tomorrow I'll be going to, which is I believe the actual day in Puri, when it's happening in India, where tomorrow it's in Bloomington, Illinois. And like this, all over the world, due to Srila Prabhupada's mercy, there are Rath Yatra festivals. So we may think, oh, I've been to so many festivals. Oh, I'll just do my hearing and chanting. But here Rupa Goswami is saying that we should not fail to observe these festivals, because observing these festivals gives pleasure to the Lord. Krishna is happy when millions of people come out to attend his Rath Yatra festival. So if everyone thinks, oh, I'll skip, then who will come there? So these festivals give Krishna pleasure. In the song Shuddha Bhakata, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he mentions how these festivals are the mother of devotion. They give birth to devotion within our hearts. One should not avoid bowing down before the deity. So sometimes we may come in the temple and think, oh, I've already bowed down. But yes, so in Puri, the Rath Yatra is on Monday. So therefore it's in the US, it's the 11th, which is July 11th. So one may say, oh, this is too repetitious, but we should never fail to bow down before the deity, especially those who are worshiping the deity. The pujari must bow down before the deity before offering worship. One should not enter the temple to worship the Lord without having washed one's hands and feet after eating. One should not enter the temple in a contaminated state. According to Vedic scripture, if someone dies in the family, the whole family becomes contaminated for some time, according to its status. For example, if the family is Brahmana, their contamination period is 12 days. For the Kshatriya and Vaishya, it is 15 days, and for the Shudra, 30 days. So these things are there. We should not enter the temple in a contaminated state. And therefore, the devotee follows these principles out of respect for the Lord. Although there is a higher principle also that if for the service of the Lord we have to go early, the devotee can do that because chanting is the main purificatory process. One should not bow down on one hand. Very interesting. So sometimes we have like a bead bag in one hand, and then we bow down with one hand. So if we do it, we should do it right. And this is part of the reason I'm going through this. I'm actually very selfish. I'm doing this for my own benefit. Because by going through these, we remember these things. And as we'll discuss as we go on, these things are not, you could say, the most crucial elements of our Krishna consciousness. These items are more details than they are the important principles. So if someone does bow down with one hand, it's not not like their spiritual life is finished. But all these items, they participate. They are part of the culture of Vaishnavism, the culture of Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada, for example, had all these qualities within him. He was so ideal in every way. And he also knew when these things were not so important. But the point being that Rupa Goswami is writing these things so that we can follow them. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that the Nectar devotion is a law book of the Krishna consciousness movement because laws are to be followed. So he is writing for our benefit, and therefore we want to somehow imprint these things in our heart, in our minds, so that we can naturally try to follow them. Not force someone, not force ourselves or others, but naturally, out of the culture of Krishna consciousness, as part of the culture of Krishna consciousness, we try to practice these things. One should not bow down on one hand. One should not circumambulate in front of Sri Krishna. So you might notice that when we do Tulsi Puja, we close the curtains. So we circumambulate Krishna, but we don't circumambulate in front of him. The process of circumambulating the temple is that one should begin circumambulating from the deity's right-hand side of the temple and come around. Such circumambulation should be performed outside the temple structure at least 3 times daily. So this is even in the Buddhist tradition, they do this. One should not spread his legs before the deity. A very important principle. There's many stories, even children. There's the Jagannath of Mayapur, and one time a small girl or boy, I don't remember, they spread their legs in front of the deity. And the Pujari was telling, no, don't do it, but they were still doing it, and just a child. And then something mystical happened where the child could not walk after that. But then, of course, the child came and prayed for the mercy of the deity, and then the child was cured. But this is a true story of the Jagannath Mayapur. Deities are very, very present, and they're very receptive and they greatly reciprocate based upon the way that we relate with them. Just actually yesterday, I had this small experience. I was at the temple, and Krishna has a schedule and the time period and all these things. And one pujari was, it happens all the time. One pujari was in a little bit of a hurry, and so the pujari started the arti, opened the curtains 5 minutes before the actual time. So maybe they had something to do, they had to go or something. So they just opened the curtains 5 minutes before. And when the pujari opened the curtain, Then the curtain got stuck because the curtain wouldn't open. And it was, everyone could understand, the pujari could understand, the audience could understand that the Lord is saying, don't open my curtain, it's not still time. I mean, the deities themselves, for no other reason, uh, not even that, okay, it's troublesome for the devotees because they may be late then for the arti or whatnot, but the deities themselves, they demand, or they want us to serve them in a particular standard, in a particular way. And so the curtain got stuck, and then it took a few minutes to unravel the curtain, figure out what was wrong with it. And by the time all of that was solved, it was the actual time to open the curtains. So we have to remember when we go to the temple that the Lord is present there, especially in the temple. Like in our home deity worship, Krishna is more lax, or you could say Krishna is, um, you could say, it depends on our devotion, but Krishna is not that visible, so to say. But in the temple, the deity is installed. There's prana pratishtha that's happened. So the prana pratishtha means that the Lord actually enters into the deity at that time. So if we make offenses to the deity, then, and we think, oh, it's just a statue, they won't notice, then Krishna will either let us know that he's there, and or Krishna will give us a reaction. So these are very important principles that we observe in front of the deity, like not spreading our legs or showing the deity our feet, because the Lord is present there. If Krishna was actually there, would we sit like that? No, we would not. If Krishna is actually there, would we open the curtains early? No, we would not. So that is the consciousness. And remember how we read also, which comes again here, that how the temple is like a holy place of pilgrimage. So the temple and the place of pilgrimage are comparable, and therefore one has to be all the more careful in the place of pilgrimage. One should not sit before the deity holding the ankles, elbows, or knees with one's hands. So one should not hold one's ankles, elbows, or knees with one's hands. One should not lie down before the deity of Krishna. One should not accept prasad before the deity. So the prasad is of the Lord, but one should not accept it. One should not eat it before the deity. Just like, if President Biden was here, and I wasn't, we weren't having lunch with him, then we would not eat in front of him. And he's just a president of a small, little, insignificant country. Krishna is the king of the whole world. So we don't eat in front of him out of respect for him. One should never speak a lie before the deity. So one should never be dishonest. Bali Maharaj, in the Bhagavatam, he says that Bhumi, Mother Earth, can bear the weight of anything in this world, but Bhumi cannot bear the weight of a person who is dishonest. So especially in front of the deity, if we made a promise, if we said something, we should not turn it into a lie. We should uphold that promise. And this is why initiation is such a serious vow, because we make the promise in front of the deity. And so if we break that promise, then it means it's a lie, and we should not lie in front of the deity. One should not talk very loudly before the deity. So this image sort of shows arguing, but even not arguing, just speaking very loudly, which people do all the time. They start to chitter chatter in front of the deity, the curtains are open, and they're talking about, their car and their house or something like this. So one should not talk very loudly before the deity. One should not talk with others before the deity, especially when we are on the altar. We should not be chitter-chattering with others. The focus is Krishna, the focus is the deity. We should not be talking and moving around in front of the deity. One should not cry or howl before the deity. So I think we did discuss this last time. So yes, one should not quarrel or fight before the deity. So it's not good to fight And it's especially not good to fight in front of the deity. One should not chastise anyone before the deity. So that's also an offense to chastise someone before the deity. One should not be charitable to beggars before the deity. So this is pretty odd. Why should we not give charity to beggars before the deity? The reason is because in front of the deity, in front of Krishna, Krishna is the bestower of all benedictions. The beggar comes to ask benedictions from Krishna. So we should not assert ourselves as Ishvaras, that I am giving you money, because the Lord is the giver of money. Outside, that's why the beggars in India, they sit outside of the temple. And there we are supposed to give. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told his householder disciples that we should give to the beggars something, otherwise our heart will become very hard, he said. But that's not in front of the deity. The deity is the only one bestowing benedictions when the deity is there. One should not speak very harshly to others before the deity. Again, not good to speak harshly at any point, but especially in front of the deity, one should not do that. One should not wear a fur blanket before the deity. So again, simplicity, humility, one should come in front of the Lord in a humble and clean state. One should not eulogize or praise anyone else before the deity. So something to remember, like when we make announcements in the temple, we're glorifying other people, um, sometimes donors, things like that. So it should not be, directly in front of the deity. It should be either slightly to the side or with the curtains closed, because again, the Lord is a master there. We only praise Krishna when Krishna is present. One should not speak any ill names before the deity. So, same idea. One should not pass air before the deity. Krishna is there again, so not allowed. One should not fail to worship the deity according to one's means. So Prabhupada explains this. He says, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the Lord is satisfied if some devotee offers him even a leaf or a little water. This formula prescribed by the Lord is universally applicable, even for the poorest man. But that does not mean that one who has sufficient means to worship the Lord very nicely should also adopt this method and try to satisfy the Lord simply by offering water and leaf. Um, if he has sufficient means, he should offer nice decorations, nice flowers, and nice foodstuffs, and observe all ceremonies. It is not that one should try to satisfy the Supreme Lord with a little water and a leaf, and for himself spend all his money in sense gratification. So this is a very beautiful point here, that like sometimes you go to wealthy homes, especially in India, you see this, and they are offering, saf and mishri, meaning fennel seeds and rock candy to the Lord in front of their altar. But for themselves, they're eating at nice restaurants and eating ice cream and all these nice things. So this is not proper. The statements in the scriptures, this is an offense. The statements in the scriptures would say that Krishna, patram pushpam phalam toyam, that Krishna is satisfied even with a leaf, flower, and some fruit. Those are saying that even if you don't have anything, no one is barred from serving the Lord, because even if we don't have anything, we can still serve the Lord with whatever we have. But this does not mean that if we are a wealthy person, we should not engage our wealth in the service of Krishna. Another way this principle could be applied is sometimes, you go in people's homes and they have a small home, they have a 2-bedroom apartment. And so their altar is like in a kitchen cabinet. They open a kitchen cabinet and they make the nice altar there. And it's very nice because they have a very small place, 2 adults, 2 kids, and everyone, has barely enough room. So they make a small, cabinet or closet, not closet, but more like a, cabinet in the kitchen, nicely open it up and make an altar. But then Um, and then, but the point is that um, sometimes you go into a very large house, a very beautiful house that has so many bedrooms, so much space. And there also you see that Krishna is in a closet or Krishna is in a cabinet. And that is not proper, right? So if our house is small, the altar can be small. But if the house is big, then Krishna should have his own room. Krishna should be in the center of the home. Krishna should be, worshipped according to one's means. So, very nice principle. One should not eat anything which is not offered first to Krishna. So here we see some very nice gulab jamuns. Um, all of these things must be first offered to Krishna, and then one can enjoy these things. There's one passage in which Prabhupada says that even if one cannot practice Vaishnava principles, if one goes on eating prasadam, one will make spiritual advancement. So thank God we can all make spiritual advancement just by eating prasad. One should not fail to offer fresh fruit and grains to Krishna according to the season. So the flowers should be fragrant, the fruit should be fresh according to the season. So this means that Krishna likes local produce, not that it's coming from Mexico or somewhere else and it's freezing cold, but we're getting summer fruit. No, Krishna has put different fruit in different seasons, and those fruits can be offered according to the season. Of course, we can offer everything. We should offer everything to Krishna, but especially we should offer fruits and grains to Krishna that are fresh and according to the season. The very nice story in this regard is about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when one time his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, brought a fresh mango in the home. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur went up as a small boy. He was just 3 or 4 years old. And he went up and he grabbed the fruit. He grabbed the mango and he said, "This is mine." And Bhaktivinoda Thakur looked at him very gravely and said, "Fresh fruit has come in the home, and you have not first offered it to the deity, but you have kept it for yourself." And to this, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he took the chastisement of his father so seriously that he said, "For the rest of my life, I will not eat a mango." And the point is that this is not an easy vow. I mean, in India, in the land of mangoes, to give up mango, the best and sweetest fruit, it's like giving up, I don't know, it's like giving up sugar for the rest of your life. And whenever Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was offered mango, he would say, "No, I am an offender." So how seriously he took principle number 26 of Rupa Goswami, right? Again, these principles are there for us to follow. Now, of course, we don't have to go to that extreme, because he was a pure devotee. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur could act on that level. But we should also not be purposefully neglectful, that strawberries and grapes are coming into the home and we just say Om Tat Sat and thanks for the grub and eat it, right? So this is not a Vaishnava principle. After food has been cooked, no one should be offered any foodstuff unless it is first offered to the deity. This painting here is of Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri established the deity of Gopala, and the whole village came and offered foodstuffs to the deity of Gopala. So all spiritual activities should revolve around the deity of the temple deity. One should not sit with his back toward the deity. So we should never show the back, especially like in temples, sometimes people are taking pictures. So they don't know, but we should tell them when they come in the temple that they should not they should not put their back toward the deity when taking a picture. They like to have, the deity in the background and they're standing in front. But this is very offensive. One should not offer obeisances silently to the spiritual master. Or in other words, one should recite aloud the prayers to the spiritual master while offering obeisances. Very interesting. How many devotees do this? So when we offer obeisances, we always say Nama Om Vishnupadaya, we say the prayers to the spiritual master. Those should be said a little loudly. They should not be said silently. One should not fail to offer some praise in the presence of the spiritual master. So whenever we see the spiritual master, we should offer some praise. And you actually see this in the prayers in the Bhagavatam, that the devotees, before they say anything, they ask anything, they always praise the Lord. They always praise the Lord or his devotee or the spiritual master. And when you read, you sometimes think, oh, this is a little boring. Again, praise, every person is praising. But no, this is a devotional principle. We don't have a taste, therefore we feel it's boring. But first, we should offer some praise. First, we glorify the great personality, and then we move forward. One should not deride the demigods before the deity. So one should not deride the demigods before the deity. Besides these, there are a number of offenses which are mentioned in the Varapuran. They are as follows. So just on this one, so we don't worship the demigods, but at the same time, we should not deride the demigods. If we deride them, that's a great offense because they are servants of the Lord. They have been given that position because they are serving Krishna. So now there's other offenses that he lists, and they are as follows. One should not touch the deity in a dark room. So we should always first turn on the light and then serve the deity. One should not fail to strictly follow the rules and regulations in worshiping the deity. So we should, as far as possible, follow them. One should not enter the temple of the deity without first making some sound. So always there's a bell, or we clap or do something to let Krishna know that that we are not that we are a great personality that we have to let Krishna know that we're here, but the point is just like it's like ringing the bell when you come in someone's home. Out of respect for them, you ring the bell to let them know that you are entering into their privacy. Just like it's very annoying when sometimes people they just they come and they open the door, neighbors or something, say, hello, it's like you might be in the middle of a phone call or something. So Krishna is a very busy person also, so we just ring the bell. It's like a ring that it's telling Krishna that we are invading his privacy. One should not offer any foodstuff to the deity which has been seen by dogs or other lower animals. And this is why devotees cannot have dogs inside their home. Maybe outside, but not inside. Because if they even see the food, it's not offerable to Krishna. If an animal has seen the food, it's not offerable to Krishna. Why is that the case? Do we have something against dogs? No, because when the dog sees the food, then the dog feels like eating the food, right? So there's a principle in deity worship, even for human beings, that when you're cooking for Krishna, you should not think about eating it, because then it's unofferable. But oh, let me taste this, and then Furthermore, they smell the food and they eat it by smelling it. So for these reasons, no one, not even just lower animals, but no one who is not a devotee should not see the food before it's offered to Krishna, because when they see it, they will think about eating it, and then that food becomes unofferable. One should not break silence while worshiping. So generally, the standard is that when the pujari is worshiping the Lord, then it's the full focus. It's about focus, that they're fully focusing on their service to Krishna. And therefore, you'll see in the big temples, the pujari himself is not singing along with the kirtan, party. Now, silence, Prabhupada says, also means chanting the holy name of Krishna. Chanting the holy name of Krishna is silence. So definitely we cannot talk, but if one is chanting while worshiping, then that is still considered silence, and that is still okay. Of course, within our mind, we should always be chanting, but I mean out loud. In some temples, you see the pujaris kind of singing along, or chanting some mantras while doing the worship, and that is still considered silence. One should not pass urine or evacuate while engaged in worshiping. So you might be wondering, who passes urine or evacuates while they worship? What this means is that it doesn't literally mean that you'll pass urine on the altar. What it means is that if you are serving the Lord and then you have to go and use the bathroom, then that is not allowed while serving the Lord. You use the bathroom and then you come back, that's not okay. If we go into the bathroom and then we have deity service, we have to come back, then we need to shower and then come back. Now we have to be careful in this principle because I know for a fact that some devotees got very sick, like very, very sick, because they're pujaris and for many hours at a time they were controlling their urine. Like they were not going to the bathroom because if they have to go to the bathroom, then they have to shower. And if they shower, then the service of the Lord will get disturbed. And they got very sick. And so, therefore, if one's going to be a pujari, one cannot be uh, lazy in terms of showering. One has to just accept the fact that you'll have to bathe a few times a day because, we cannot also stop the call of nature, and stopping it may result in disease. And we also cannot, answer the call of nature and then go back immediately. One has to shower and then go back. One should not offer incense without offering some flower. Now, of course, on this principle, there's a difference between temple standard and home standard. Like in home standards, it's very common that people say that if they pass urine, if they wash their hands and feet, then they can go back and worship the Lord. But if they evacuate, they have to shower. But definitely after evacuating, there's no question of going and worshiping the Lord without showering. One should not offer incense without offering some flower. So very interesting. I didn't know this. With incense, there should always be flower. One should not simply offer incense to Krishna, meaning that if one's offering incense after that, one should offer flower to the Lord. Useless flowers without any fragrance should not be offered. And these are the flowers that we offer mostly. I mean, now it's very hard to get fragrant flowers. But as far as possible, we try to offer fragrant flowers to Krishna. One should not fail to wash his teeth very carefully every day. So we should wash our teeth and then shower. We should not shower and then wash our teeth because washing teeth is muchi. So one should wash his teeth and then shower every day. One should not enter the temple directly after sexual intercourse. One should not touch a woman during her menstrual period. So one should try to follow these principles. One should not enter the temple after touching a dead body. So if one has touched a dead body, one has to shower and cleanse oneself. One should not enter the temple wearing garments of red or blue color or garments which are unwashed. So our garments should be washed, and very interesting that they should not be red or blue. So if we have red or blue clothes, they all need to be kept outside the temple. One should not enter the temple after.
Sorry for interrupting. So, red and blue is very interesting. Do you know any reason for not wearing red and blue?
I actually don't. I was wondering about this, Mataji. I really don't. I can only speculate that, um, like red, people say it's the color that Srimati Radharani wears. So therefore, we should also not wear that color. Blue, maybe, I don't know, is Balaram's color of his clothes. But then Krishna wears yellow. So yeah, I really don't know what the reason is.
Okay.
Prabhu, is this rule of for the altar or in general in the temple room?
Well, it says temple, but I think it's more strictly enforced. In other words, it's more important to follow, especially on the altar. So on the altar, and I do see devotees following this principle, like on the altar, women will not wear red saris, very well known. And then blue is not, I didn't think of blue before, but red or blue is not worn on the altar. Um, but in the temple room, like it's like, hundreds of people, thousands of people. And so it's not, we're not right in front of Krishna. So it's still not so offensive. Temple, I'll have to look at the Sanskrit, but temple could mean altar place. Uh, and temple could, ultimately, everyone who's going in the temple is doing archana. They're worshiping the Lord by going into the temple. Even if you sing a song in front of the deity, it is archana. So these are for everyone. Prabhupada is saying temple, so that means temple. But they're probably especially, designed, or Rupa Goswami is thinking about, especially the pujari, the person who's worshiping the deity.
Haribol Prabhu,
Yes.
would the dyes have anything to do with the possibility of like the actual dye coming from like animal sources or like non-plant sources? If it was common to get it from like bugs or something like that.
I see, and that's why the red or blue is not
Specify
allowed.
maybe.
Um, I, it would be possible, but hard to make that connection just because the other colors are allowed.
Right.
So, like red, I mean, red does denote to me the mode of passion.
Mhm.
So I think that could be a reason. They say, so someone told me this when long time ago, when my parents were getting curtains for the home. Then the curtain person came and they said that, obviously people don't want red. If it's red, then it's like, it means like, you're kind of inspiring a passionate atmosphere in that room. But then it was interesting that he said that blue makes people feel romantic, that even more than red, blue is considered a romantic color. So maybe red and blue are more in the mode of passion and ignorance. Now, but blue is Krishna's color, but I mean in terms of garments, in terms of clothes. Maybe when it's not in relation to Krishna, it's a more passionate color. But this is, again, it's all speculation.
Yes, Prabhuji, it's very interesting because most of the time, when there is a Balram Jayanti or Janmashtami, Mataji's make a plan to wear blue sari, like it's a mass plan. Let's everybody wear blue sari because it's Janmashtami or, Balram Jayanti.
Yes. Yes, no, that's a good point. I once saw a devotee wear a blue dhoti in the temple. Same thing on, I think, with Balaram's appearance day or something like this. But yeah, no, that's the thing. It's
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Um, Sorry, Prabhu, I'm not able to
Yes.
start my video, but I had a question regarding these points that you've been mentioning.
Mm,
Prabhu, kids sometimes, I mean, as much as we want to, make sure that we follow all of these
mm,
rules, uh, but kids sometimes, younger kids especially, um, if they happen to, do any of these, is that pardonable or?
mm. So yes, nice point, Prabhu, because I put some pictures of children also.
Yeah, I see
Um,
that.
yes, Prabhu. So we should. The reason I put that, because we should try to teach the children
Of
these
course.
things, like repeatedly telling them, don't put your back to the deity, don't put your back to the deity, or don't show your legs or your feet to the deity.
Right.
So in this way they learn these things. But absolutely, like you're mentioning, with children there's much less offense, because
Okay.
Krishna knows they're doing it involuntarily. There's just no offense. But the offense is to the parents if they are not trying to tell their children to do these things. So if they're not trying to avoid the offenses, that's the main thing. So just like, if a child goes out and breaks someone's car, then who pays for it? It's the parents that pay for the child's mistake. The child does not pay for it. So the same thing, I think, would apply to the offenses, that um, if knowingly, if the child is performing an offense to the deity, knowingly to the parents, then the parents will get some reaction. Of course, if the child still does it, or the child is doing it unknown to the parents, then there will be no or less reaction.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
That answers. Thank you.
Yes, but like I mentioned to you, that story is there of the Mayapur Jagannath, where the small child was putting their feet towards that, and Lord Baladev did not tolerate it. So sometimes they will show mercy in that way, just to teach the child and the parents. So yes.
Right. Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Thank you. So we mentioned touching the dead body, and now it's even if you see a dead body, one has to shower. One should not enter the temple after seeing a dead body. So I guess dead bodies are very inauspicious, unless they're devotees' dead body. A devotee's dead body is spiritual, and that's even brought in the temple. Like I still remember to this day when Tamal Krishna Maharaj passed away, they brought his body inside the temple, placed it in front of Shri Shri Radha Madhav. The devotees offered flowers to it, and then they took it, in front of Nrsingadev and the Panchatattva. And you think, how is this possible? It's possible because that body is completely spiritual. The body of a devotee is not a dead material body, it is a spiritual body. And then we covered this also previously. One should not pass air within the temple. So we can go outside and pass it. One should not be angry within the temple. So again, not to be angry. One should not enter the temple after visiting a crematorium. This is a point Rupa Goswami mentions quite a few times. So it's an important point to remember, I guess. One should not belch before the deity. So no passing air in either direction. Until one has fully digested his food, he should not enter the temple. This is very interesting. So after prasad, it's like, we're just like this. We should not enter the temple if we're too full, and we may belch then. One should not smoke marijuana or ganja. One should not take opium or similar intoxicants. So very important. Don't take marijuana or ganja or go in the temple stoned. So this is not allowed. Of course, again, this is not to be taken at all. But yeah, this is what he's saying. It's not in relation to temple. He says one should not take these things. One should not enter the deity room or touch the body of the deity after having smeared oil over his body. So many of these are also common sense. It's like, if we smeared oil on our hair and our body, then we should not go in front of the Lord. And see here they specify in the deity room or touch the body of a deity. So people can still come in the temple, but not in the actual altar. One should not show disrespect to a scripture teaching about the supremacy of the Lord. So we saw previously how not showing disrespect to the demigods, because they're servants of the Lord, even though we don't worship them. The same goes true about other scriptures, even more so, that although we don't follow them, we still should never disrespect them, like the Quran or the Holy Bible or the Torah, because these scriptures are teaching about the glories of the Lord. Billions of people are worshiping the Lord because of these scriptures. So who are we to disrespect them? We should never disrespect the messengers of the Lord or their teachings or the books about the Lord, because they are all glorifying Krishna. We don't have the right to disrespect them.
Hare Krishna, Babu.
Yes.
Just a very quick question, just about the point that you mentioned right before this. So oftentimes, when we shower and we just getting ready for the day before um, we use deodorants and stuff like that.
Mm.
Just as if we're getting ready, and then we do our services and then start our day. But is that okay? Because deodorants have some kind of alcohol in it.
Mm.
So what is your take on it, bro? What's
Well, like I use generally like this baking soda deodorant, and so that's mainly to because it's an offense. Actually, one of the offenses is um, to not be clean or to be smelly in front of the deity. So that's mainly to avoid another offense, which is that our body is emitting a unpleasant smell, which will be uncomfortable for the Lord. This smearing of the oil is more in terms of like making the body shiny and or even just for the health of the body. And so therefore one devotee actually told me that one pujari, he was a pujari, he told me that he would put oil on his body before showering rather than after showering. So in the morning, like you're saying, when it's needed, sometimes our skin is very dry or this or that. So he would put it on right after getting up, and then he would take a shower. And then after that, it still stays a little bit on your body, but it's not like oily. Or he would put it on, the night, at night in the evening before going to sleep. And then in the morning, then he showers and it's gone. So I know a lot of people, even doctors, they say it's good to put oil after showering. One can do that, but only if one's not going to the temple. If one's going to the temple, then one should not do that.
Okay.
But I think deodorants are okay, Prabhu, because deodorants are, they're, first of all, it's hidden, it's not showing, and secondly, it's primarily more like baking soda and things that are just meant to cut the smell.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, like extreme perfumes that are oily. So I think maybe that's what you were asking about also, like extreme like oils and things like that that have this perfume for men and for women. Those should be avoided. So we should not, go to the temple with fragrance and things like that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, bro.
Thank you. One should not introduce any opposing scripture unfavorable to bhakti. So, sometimes we take, this is a fox in a sheep's clothing. One should not introduce these false scriptures, false doctrines that oppose bhakti. One should not chew betel before the deity. Betel nut is very common in India, so it's more of an issue in that part of the world. One should not offer a flower which was kept in an unclean pot. One should not worship the Lord while sitting on the bare floor. One must have a sitting place or carpet. So this is very interesting because sometimes we avoid getting an asan, right? Someone offers us an asan and we feel unqualified to it, so we push it away, right? But Rupa Goswami is actually saying that it's an offense not to have an asan when we are worshiping the Lord. Therefore, you see the pujari always has a little asan or little mat that the pujari stands on. So why is this the case? Probably a cleanliness thing, because you're worshiping the deity. The floor is naturally dirty. So if you have an asan, then it keeps you more clean. It keeps you more clean. One should not touch the deity before one has completed taking bath. One should not decorate the forehead with a 3-line tilak. The 3-line tilak is for devotees of Shiva. So he's saying that we should do the 2-line tilak like Prabhupada did. One should not enter the temple without washing his hands and feet. So in ISKCON, our foot washing is not as common. The hand washing is more common. But this is the best to do it this way. One should not worship the deity before a non-devotee. And one should not engage himself in the worship of the Lord while seeing a non-devotee. So, this is more for the pujari, that the pujari should be focused on the Lord and should be worshiping the Lord in a very pure way. And this is referring also, this has a context to it. Like, for example, when you're dressing the deity, then the curtains should be closed. Non-devotees should not be seeing you or the deity. When we're offering prasad, bhoga, when we're offering bhoga to the Lord, this is why we always put a curtain or even a half curtain. Why? So the non-devotees don't see him. Now in Artik, the non-devotees do see him while the Lord is being worshipped. But that ceremony is meant for that purpose. But most of the worship actually that goes on to the deity happens behind closed curtains. So why is that? It's because of this principle. One should begin the worship of the demigod Ganapati, who drives away all impediments in the execution of devotional service. So one should begin the worship with offering respect to Ganapati. not as a ritual, but because he is a devotee of the Lord and he drives impediments away from the execution of devotional service. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that Ganapati worships the lotus feet of Lord Nrsingadev, and in that way has become auspicious for the devotees in clearing out all impediments. Therefore, all devotees should worship Ganapati. So, um, we therefore sometimes in our temples have a small statue of him. And you may think, well, but why not so much as Rupa Goswami here is mentioning? The reason is because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his mercy, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, have somewhat taken the place of Ganapati. The principle is still there that we need the mercy before the worship because otherwise we won't be able to do it. But rather than Ganapati, we are worshiping Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda. So Prabhupada has given an explanation to this. I do not encourage you to worship this demigod Ganesh. It is not required. It is not necessary. Simply worship Krishna. Perform nice devotional service to Krishna. Then your lives will certainly become perfect. Of course, if one has got some sentiment for achieving the blessings of Ganesh, for accumulating large sums of money to serve Krishna, then he may perform this Ganesh worship privately, not making a public show. But first of all, he must give me $100,000 per month, not a single farthing less. If he can supply this amount, $100,000 per month, then he will be allowed to do this Ganesh Puja. Otherwise, he should not do it. It will not be good. That is my order. So Prabhupada has clarified here that we can give him, if we give him $100,000 per month, then we can worship Ganesh. And we might think, why is this? Because see, this is the application of a pure devotee. Srila Prabhupada knows that if we start worshiping Ganesh, we will not worship him to uh, to remove impediments on the path of our devotion. Rather, we will start worshiping him for the reason that most people worship him, which is for accumulation of money. And so if we start worshiping Ganesha, it'll become, please give me money, and then we'll worship Krishna, and there'll be two purposes. One is to get money, and one is not like that. So, he's saying even if you want to worship Ganesh, then that means uh, if you're worshiping him for money, then he says, someone may say, I'm worshiping him for money so I can serve Krishna. So Prabhupada says, okay, you give me $100,000 a month, and then you worship Ganesh. So you give your money, if you're actually doing it for Krishna, you give it to me, and then you can worship Ganesh. So we are not recommended to do it for this reason. Even though Rupa Goswami is saying it, because we can offer respect, we can remember him for a moment so that he can remove obstacles on the path of devotion. But the worship of Ganesh is very tricky because it can lead to a materialistic consciousness. The deities should not be bathed in water which has been touched by the nails or fingers. Very interesting. So the Lord should not be bathed in water which has been touched by the nails or the fingers. Maybe with a conch, right? When a devotee is perspiring, he should not engage himself in worshiping the deity. So again, the point of cleanliness, we should not be perspiring, we should not have a smell, an odor. One should not cross or step over the flowers offered to the deities, nor should one take a vow in the name of God. The name of God is too auspicious. We cannot take our materialistic vows in the name of God. Even when a person becomes an offender unto the Supreme Personality of God himself, he can still be delivered simply by taking the shelter of the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In other words, the chanting of Hare Krishna is beneficial for eradicating all sins. But if one becomes an offender to the holy names of the Lord, then he has no chance of being delivered. So here, it seems like Srila Prabhupada is making a contradiction. He says, even if you're an offender, you can be delivered by chanting the Mahamantra. But if one is chanting Hare Krishna and one is an offender, then one cannot be delivered. Well, here, Prabhupada is making the distinction between Seva Aparat and Nam Aparat. Up until this point, we have been talking about Seva Aparats. And these Seva Aparats are more minor in nature. So now, having gone through them, the caveat is that they are less serious. If we go to the temple and we worship the Lord, and in worshiping our fingers touch the water which is being bathed in the Lord, it's not the end of the world. If we accidentally pass air in front of the deity, it's not the end of the world. Because the chanting of the holy name will deliver us, even though we have to avoid these offenses. If we do them purposely, that'll be an offense. But the chanting of the holy name will deliver us if we make these offenses accidentally. But if we make offenses against the holy name itself, then our progress will be very slow. And now Rupa Goswami discusses offenses to the holy name of Krishna. And these offenses we should memorize and take very seriously, because as this quote showed, they are more serious offenses. The first one, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. So we chant these every morning, and we're again and again reminded, do not blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their lives, who have given their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. Even if they have faults, we must understand that those faults will become purified very quickly, and therefore we should not criticize them if they're engaged in this service. As far as possible, we should not criticize them. We may need to say something, but we should say it in a way, in a mood of humility, in a mood of trying to correct the situation and not criticize the devotee. And those who are preaching God consciousness, never mind in any part of the world, those who are preaching God consciousness, in your country, Christian, not in your country. Of course, it was preached in Central Asia, but now Christianism is spread all over. So Lord Jesus Christ, he also preached God consciousness. And Muhammad, Hazrat Muhammad, he also preached God consciousness. Similarly, in India, there were several acharyas, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, God consciousness they preached. So what does this mean? If Prabhupada is saying that they are propagating God consciousness all over the world, that means we should not criticize them. We should not criticize Muhammad or Christ because they're pure devotees. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. So we should not think them to be equal. We should not disrespect them, nor should we think them to be equal. Sometimes the atheistic class of men take it that any demigod is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. But one who is a devotee knows that no demigod, however great he may be, is independently as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, if someone thinks that he can chant Kali Kali or Durga Durga, and it is the same as Hare Krishna, that is the greatest offense. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. So to disobey the order of the spiritual master is an offense against the holy name. It will affect our chanting of the holy name. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. So to blaspheme the Vedic literature is very bad. Or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. So even other texts that may not be exactly Vedic literature, if they are glorifying the Lord, it's a great offense. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imaginations. So, oh, this is hyperbole. Chanting is powerful, but it's not so powerful. That is an offense. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. So, what's the difference between 5 and 6? Well, so when we think the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination, we think, oh, the holy name is not actually so great. But this one here is like trying to find some material understanding of the holy name. So many devotees, they try to bring out the meditative or mental benefits of chanting. The chanting is very good to calm the mind, which may be true, but to say that chanting is for calming the mind is to give an interpretation on the holy name. That's not the interpretation that the acharyas gave. The holy name is meant for us to develop love for God, and that's the reason. It's not meant to calm the mind. That's not the interpretation that we should give. To commit sinful activities on the
Hare Krishna
strength.
Prabhuji, sorry for interrupting. So in the beginning, let's say if you're preaching to somebody like, neophyte, and if not necessarily, just going into essence and saying that, the chanting is going to give you a love of Godhead, but, you can talk about, meditation or, giving a peace. Is that okay? Because I think that's how I see that, most of people, they preach, especially to Westerners. So can
Yes,
you just
yes, yes, Vadi. Like many devotees, they say when they distribute Prabhupada's books, they say these are nice books on yoga and meditation, and they help reduce stress, right? I think that's what you mean. That, oh, it's like it's an interpretation. If you chant, it'll reduce stress, and in this way, people they start chanting. Well, that I take it more like that's a way of tricking people to chant. So you're not saying exactly that this is the effect of chanting. This is why we chant. You're just saying, oh, if you chant like to a child, you're saying if you chant, I'll give you a lollipop. So it doesn't mean that this is what the chanting does. It gives people, millions of lollipops. But it's saying if you chant, you'll get a lollipop. In the same way, if you chant, you become stress free. You will become stress free. So Prabhupada said the devotee can trick others in serving the Lord. It's more just like a way of tricking them to start the process. But we're not developing a whole theology around that. Like some devotees, they actually started writing books on, you know, the mental benefits of chanting and like really getting into it. It wasn't just like one phrase, like you're saying. It's a whole like idea of how, chanting can be, mental, this, that. And to that, I know many of Prabhupada's direct disciples, they objected and they said, no, this is the sixth offense, which is interpretation of the holy name. The holy name is not for this purpose, and we cannot give these interpretations. So it's more of a, when we do it more extensively, then it becomes that offense.
thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Yes, nice point. I'm glad you raised that point. Yes. Number 7, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord. It should not be taken that because by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can be freed from all kinds of sinful reactions. Um, one may continue to act sinfully and after that chant Hare Krishna to neutralize his sins. Such a dangerous mentality is very offensive and should be avoided. It's very hard to decide which is the greatest offense, number 1 or number 7. So blaspheming devotees is, one of the greatest offense against the holy name. But in some places, Prabhupada says that this is the greatest offense against the holy name, to sin in the name of God. So many people do it, right? And that's why people have a negative approach to religion. But what they don't know is actually this is the greatest offense against the name. When we sin in the strength of the name, or when we perform sinful activities, we think, "Oh, I will never do that," but we do that when we you know when we use our platform as a devotee to hurt others or to perform sinful activities. That is number 7. That because I'm a devotee, I can I can engage in sinful activities, or I can, because I'm a devotee, um, or on the basis of me being a devotee, I like, in other religions also this happens. The priests, the bishops, or the preachers, um, they they take advantage. They abuse the congregation because of their position, right? It's very common. Court cases happen, things. So why is the reaction so heavy? Because it is a very great offense to use your spiritual position and commit sins on the strength of that spiritual position. In the same way, to commit sins on the strength of the holy name, that the holy name will purify me, is very offensive. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruit of activities, karma kanda. That, I do my, Hanuman Chalisa, and I also do my chanting of Hare Krishna. It's all the same rituals. No, the chanting of Hare Krishna is beyond ritual. It is something very transcendental. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. So we should encourage everyone to chant, but we should not preach the glories of the holy name to a faithless person. Anyone can take part in chanting the holy name of the Lord, but in the beginning, one should not be instructed about the transcendental potency of the Lord. Those who are too sinful cannot appreciate the transcendental glories of the Lord, and therefore it is better not to instruct them in this matter. Then one thinks, oh, what is the problem? I mean, if they don't accept it, they don't accept it. Why can I not instruct them? And this is actually an answer to a question that I had for a long time, actually. That when someone, not just in the context of the holy name, but if someone is not ready for spiritual advice, and you give that person spiritual advice, you try to advise them, you try to correct them, what happens is that they become very offensive, isn't it? They become very angry, they become very offensive, they'll become very hurtful. And when that happens, then it starts a cycle. Then you also respond, you react, and you become offensive. And then that happens, the mind becomes very disturbed. There's a feeling of hatred, and the mind becomes very, very disturbed. And that does affect a person's chanting. So therefore, it's very important, this principle. It's more important than it looks like. The mind will actually become disturbed. We won't be able to chant because we are trying to instruct people who are not willing to take instruction. Number 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. So this is called procrastination. And we have, people say, oh, we should wait for initiation. That's very good. Yes, we should wait for initiation. But then some people, they just keep on waiting. So that too much waiting can also be an offense. And that offense, what is that? That is this 10th offense. That you've understood so many instructions, you have no reason not to be convinced. Yet, still, we're not taking that step just because we're not taking that step because we don't have the complete faith. So we still maintain our material attachments. I still want this and that, and then we don't take that leap. We don't give up those attachments and just surrender to Krishna. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. So this is written here in the Nectar Devotion. And so this is the end of chapter 8. Sorry that it took such a long time. It's a very detailed description of these offenses. So, okay, so what I'll do is for 10 more minutes, I'll cover a few more slides because these are very interesting, and then we will have discussion. Because if I start discussion now, we won't get through this. And these final slides in chapter 9, I summarized a lot more. Chapter 8, I did not. Why? Because it was about offenses. And while we talked about the rules for a very long time, last class, and now we'll talk about them again, the offenses we did not talk about. And so although it's just a chapter, I spent more time on it because, all of us want to make spiritual advancement. So if we know what to avoid, we'll make more spiritual advancement. And so therefore, devotees want to know about this. It's very important that we remember these things. So we spent more time. So in chapter 9, the full title is Further Devotional Principles. So chapter 9 also expands on those 64 items, and it emphasizes a few of them. And I will emphasize a few of those few in this part. So scriptural evidence in this chapter is given for items 20 to 42. So Rupa Goswami is now emphasizing principles 20 to 42 of the 64 angas of bhakti. So about 22 angas he's emphasizing in this chapter, with emphasis on deity worship, chanting, and prayer. And so, of these 22, in looking at the time, I will be covering just a few of them. So, one of them that he emphasizes is number 20. One should be very intolerant toward the blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna or his devotees. So, one should it is a principle to be intolerant of blasphemy of devotees. So, it's just not enough to not blaspheme devotees ourselves. But if we see a devotee being blasphemed, we should do something. And here we will see what is recommended. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, "My dear king, if a person, after hearing blasphemous propaganda against the Lord and his devotees, does not go away from that place, he becomes bereft of the effect of all pious activities." So at the very minimum, we should try to, we should try to stop it. But if we cannot, at the very minimum, we should leave that place where a devotee is being blasphemed. And if we don't, we become bereft of the effects of all pious activities. If we try to, do what is politically best for us, and we don't actually um, uh, speak up against this or leave the place, then we will actually lose our Krishna consciousness. And I've seen this happen to devotees where they don't offend devotees, but they don't support a devotee who's being blasphemed, or they don't do the right thing. um, like, who was it who said that the greatest evil in this world is when good people remain silent, right? So when good people remain silent, it's not when bad people do bad things, but it's when good people, they see something bad is happening but they remain silent. And this is especially true, like, for example, in the area of racism or things like this, where this is why it could go on for so many years, because those people who even were against it, they didn't speak up against it. It was just too uncomfortable to oppose it. It wasn't affecting them. They weren't hurting anyone. No one's hurting them. So they just stayed silent. And that caused so much pain and suffering to others. So, so Vaishnav offense is also not just blaspheming, but also allowing the blasphemy to happen. That is an offense. Um, sorry. In one of Lord Chaitanya's Shikshashtaka verses, it is stated, the devotee should be more tolerant than a tree and more submissive than the grass. He should offer all honor to others, but may not accept all honor to others. But may not accept any honor for himself. In spite of Lord Chaitanya's being so humble and meek as a devotee, when he was informed about injuries inflicted on the body of Sri Nityananda, he immediately ran to the spot and wanted to kill the offenders, Jagai and Madhai. The offenders, Jagai and Madhai. This behavior of Lord Chaitanya's is very significant. It shows that a Vaishnava may be very tolerant and meek, foregoing everything for his personal honor. But when it is a question of the honor of Krishna or his devotees, he will not tolerate any insult. So even of Lord Krishna, I once remember that my Sanskrit teacher was insulting Lord Ram. He was saying that Ram was most likely not God, uh, even if he could not have been God, because he was Lord Ram was a sexist. He mistreated his wife, and therefore he's not God. And on one hand, he was my teacher. On the other hand, he was insulting Lord Ram. So it was a very difficult situation for me. And so I did oppose him, and as a result, I lost my relationship with him. So on one hand, we have to be respectful. On the other hand, we should not tolerate insult to the Lord or his devotees. So it can be a very difficult line to travel. And to this day, I wonder if I did the right thing or not. Like we have the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where the Mayavadi sannyasis, Mayavadis are naturally insulting the Lord. So they were preaching Mayavad. And so Lord Chaitanya sat and he listened to them quietly. For how long? Who remembers? I don't remember. How long did he sit down and listen to Prakashananda Saraswati? Is maybe I think a few weeks. He just listened to them, and then once they were done teaching, because he was Prakashananda Saraswati was older to him, more like a teacher, Sanskrit guru to him. Then after he was done speaking, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told his flaws and he broke his blasphemy. So it has to be done tactfully, but it has to be done. So I think in my case, I didn't do it tactfully. I should have used more tact. I should have waited until he was done teaching and then kind of, pointed it out to him, or pointed it out to the other students also, because he was saying it in front of the students. But but it must be done. We cannot just remain silent if someone is blaspheming the Lord or his devotees, but one can also do it tactfully. So but on this point, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he tells a very interesting point. So we've read all of the characteristics of pure devotional service, which are the characteristics of a devotee. A devotee follows these things. So he asks Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is a devotee? So he says there's a principal characteristic of a devotee and there are secondary characteristics. The principal characteristic of a devotee is that a person who is surrendered to Krishna and his name is a devotee of the Lord. So the main characteristic of a devotee is their surrender to Krishna and the name. If they have accepted Krishna and surrendered to Krishna and the name, then they are a devotee of the Lord. And then there are secondary characteristics. The secondary characteristics are other 25 qualities of a devotee. And these are the total with the surrender to Lord Krishna and the 25, these are the 26 qualities of a devotee. So these are less important. If the devotee has the first one, that they're surrendered to Krishna, then even if they're not perfectly clean, even if they make some mistakes, even if they're not expert, even if they're not this or that, they can still be considered a devotee of Krishna, because due to their surrender to the holy name of Krishna, all these other divine qualities will eventually become manifest. So first of all, Bhaktivinoda Thakur defines who is a devotee. And then he explains, so regarding the secondary characteristics, he says, devotees are always merciful, humble, truthful, equal to all, faultless, magnanimous, mild, and clean. They are without material possessions. They perform welfare work for everyone. They are peaceful, surrendered to Krishna, and desireless. They are indifferent to material acquisitions and are fixed in devotional service. They completely control the 6 bad qualities: lust, anger, greed, and so on and so forth. They eat only as much as required, and they are not inebriated. They are respectful, grave, compassionate, and without false prestige. They are friendly, poetic, expert, and silent. So this is the devotee who has all these qualifications. But if one has the principal qualification of surrender to Krishna, but if he doesn't have all of the secondary qualifications to the fullest extent, he is still considered a devotee. As one continues chanting, the secondary qualifications eventually fully manifest. So now, having said this, if we criticize him, meaning the devotee who has surrendered to Krishna, even if they don't have the secondary qualifications, meaning that they themselves are not maybe dealing nicely with us, but if we criticize him, if we bear bad feelings toward him or hear him criticized, we are involved in sadhu ninda. So even bearing bad feelings towards another devotee is sadhu ninda. Hearing them criticized is sadhu ninda. blaspheme a devotee incurs the anger of Krishna. So when we blaspheme a devotee, Krishna becomes angry. We're almost done, just one or two more slides. So then he tells us, how do we counteract sadhu ninda? So how do we counteract hearing of sadhu ninda? The instruction set forth here in the Srimad Bhagavatam that one should not tolerate at any cost the activities of a person who vilifies or blasphemes an authority. If one is a Brahmana, he should not give up his body, because by doing so he would be responsible for killing a Brahmana. Therefore, Brahmana should leave the place or block his ears so that he will not hear the blasphemy. If one happens to be a Kshatriya, he has the power to punish any man. Therefore, a Kshatriya should at once cut out the tongue of the vilifier and kill him. But as far as the Vaishyas and Shudras are concerned, they should immediately give up their bodies. Sati decided to give up her body because she thought herself to be among the Shudras and Vaishyas. So very heavy, very amazing, you know, that according to our different our positions in life, we should respond in certain ways. Now, in this day and age, it is not possible for us to give up our body in the way that Sati did. It is not possible. So, no one, please, after this class, no one perform suicide. It is not possible for us to give up our body. First, one must recognize one is being blasphemous. So we looked at, well, he said, if you hear blasphemy, this is what you should do. Now, what happens if you speak blasphemy? Raghunath Das Goswami gives an example of how one mistakes something bad for something good in discussing someone who's bathing in ass urine and thinking that he's cleansing himself. So this he's saying that sometimes when we are blaspheming a Vaishnava, we think, oh, we're doing this for a good purpose. This person should actually be blasphemed because, they're doing something wrong, and so we should point this out. And this is like um, a person who's bathing in an ass's urine and thinking that he's cleansing himself. Just like we bathe in water and we cleanse ourselves, we think that, oh, this blasphemy will help me or others. It's to, what can we do? It's to set things right. It's to set things right. No, we should recognize that is not good. It is like bathing in the urine of an ass. Sometimes we discuss the faults of a Vaishnava, and we're thinking that actually this is a very good discussion and very purifying to analyze these faults for the sake of clarifying issues to push on the movement. What can I do for the sake of the temple? I have to do this. But no, this is blasphemy. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish the devotional creeper from the weeds. Kutinati is the weed of duplicitous behavior and or fault finding. Raghunath Das Goswami compares it to bathing in ass urine. Duplicitous behavior means that we are making a show of devotional service with the main purpose of not pleasing Krishna, but to get some honor or praise, so people will respect us or think we're very pure. We find fault with others to make our position more by making others' position less. Right? Sometimes we enjoy it when another devotee gets smashed. Right? We think, this is good. Why? Because when another devotee's position becomes less, we think our position becomes greater. But actually, if we keep that mood, then the devotee who's getting smashed will get the mercy of Krishna, but we will be pulled down. So we should completely give up that mentality. If we see a devotee being blasphemed, we should rather glorify the devotee and stop that blasphemy rather than allow it to happen. To become free from sadhaninda, one should beg forgiveness from the devotee in such a way that he'll be pleased to forgive us by approaching him with humility, glorifying him, and serving him, and avoid the association of non-devotees and materialistic devotees. So uh, we should avoid materialistic devotees. And materialistic devotees are devotees who are, I mean, they like, we all know, it's like they're devotees who, they have every comment to make on everything, but at the end of the day they don't do any service. They just, they're dreamers. They want to say, I'll do this, do that. They don't do any service. They don't help the propagation, but they always have some, very smart, intelligent comment to make, or something to criticize, something to point out, always pointing out the problems but never the solutions, always finding fault but never finding, or 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 showcasing the good things, never glorifying the good things. One time Prabhupada was asked, how can we avoid Vaishnava Prad? And Prabhupada said, we can avoid it by only seeing the good in others. By seeing the good qualities, we will automatically see less of the bad qualities. So very important one, um, that this of materialistic association. Um, a devotee must visit a Vishnu temple at least once or twice a day. And finally, one must offer prayers to the Lord. And on this one, I will talk about this more next time, because this one's actually very special, offering prayers. And for this, we need like 20 minutes. So I'll continue this. I'll still give you the homework for this chapter, chapter 8 and 9. But next time, I'll just start with this, and then we'll go on to chapter 10 and 11. Okay, so I will stop here now. And if there's any comments, questions, this is the time to discuss. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes. Okay. Pushpanjali Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for the class. Prabhuji, I have a few clarification points about all these offenses to the deities. So I'll just quickly ask them. The first point about no shoes in front of the deities, but when our house is such a way that if we pass through the main hallway, we'll go in front of the deity's room, but not exactly the deity's room, then, I've seen sometimes devotees, they carry the shoes in their hands. Is that better than wearing the shoes and like quickly, crossing that their deity's room? Or
The best would be to put some curtain, to put a curtain in front of the deity room. Because the point is that Krishna should not see the shoes. So Krishna, we should not be wearing shoes in front of Krishna, or Krishna should not see the shoes, because it's an inauspicious thing. It's related to our feet. So the devotee shoes, of course, is very auspicious, but we feel that our own shoes are inauspicious. So therefore, the best is just to put a very nice curtain, and this way, Krishna, that area becomes demarcated, it becomes separated, and Krishna won't see it.
okay, Prabhuji. And then about the contamination of the dead body. Now, what is the definition of like a death in the family? Like India, we have such extended family. And then if we are in the US and, nobody says Shudras 30 days, so, who will take care of the deities? And,
Yeah.
like what is the definition of like whose death is considered that, we become contaminated and we want to deity worship?
Hmm. So someone told me, and a senior devotee told me, that Prabhupada did tell devotees to follow this principle of like 13 days or 15 days. That after someone passed away in their family, the devotee should not go on the altar for like 13 to 15 days. But the holy name of Krishna is all auspicious, it's all purifying. So Prabhupada did say that, we could go to the temple, or we could still um, chant the holy name, but we should not worship the Lord. We should not touch the Lord for that period of time. So that is a principle to be followed. Rupa Goswami is saying that. So we don't have to do the 30 days, but like 13 to 15 days, we will not touch the deity. We will not actually offer the worship to the deity. But we can go and offer obeisances, and we can still chant in front of the deity. One can still do that. But the actual archana should be done by someone else. Or if it's home deities, then we just don't do it for that time period.
Okay, Prabhuji. And one last one. You say that the food, the bhoga should not be seen by dogs or lower animals. Now, what if a fly gets into the house and like we are not seeing, they just go and sit on everything? Like, what do you do? We cannot kill the fly. It's not
Yeah.
easy to take the fly out of the house. It just
Yeah. Well, Rupa Goswami here mentions lower animals, so he actually doesn't mention the bugs. The bugs,
okay.
they're not thinking about tasting the prasad in the way I think that the fly is thinking about it. The fly is more just like the fly is more just in its own world, I guess. But
Okay.
yes, but I mean, I mean, when the food is being grown, it's being seen by animals, right? So I think the more the principle is that the food that we're offering, so we prepare the thali and the plate and all these things, that food is first to be enjoyed by Krishna. So if someone even enjoys it with their eyes or with their nose, then it's already offered before it's offered to Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. Can I just ask one
Yes,
small one?
definitely.
So, offering flower with incense, like we always try to keep a stock of flowers for offering. Once in a while, it happens that we have everything else for arti but no flower. Is there any substitute? Because I know we cannot offer tulsi because the other Vishnu tattvas are there where we can offer, but there are others also. So, what do we do in such a case?
Yes, Mataji. Actually, one senior devotee told me that in such situations, we can offer leaves to Krishna.
Okay.
so, so this is why Krishna actually says this: offer me a leaf, a flower, or a fruit, or some water. Because Krishna knows, like in some parts of the world, during winter it's snowing. There's no flower outside, but anyone can always find a leaf. And even if, of course, we cannot find that, then okay, we try something else. But generally speaking, we can find a leaf.
Okay, Prabhuji. And it's not tulsi leaf, right? I mean, we
Yeah,
cannot
no,
offer
not
tulsi
tulsi
leaf.
leaf, just
Okay.
leaves, general leaves.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Of course, that's only an emergency situation because even flowers that are not fragrant should not be offered to the Lord. So
Yeah.
what to speak of leaves? Leaves have no fragrance, so they really don't take the place of flowers. But if there is no flower, then we offer the leaves.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Ambika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Very wonderful class, Prabhuji. So, yeah, I think you kind of clarified few points that I have when Mother Puspanjali Mataji asked question about, animals. So, because, obviously, even if we don't have any pets, sometimes the spiders are there. But I think spiders are not animals, so I guess we don't
Yes.
have to worry about the spiders and flies. I guess they just get in the house. So, Prabhuji, the question I have that I really wanted to clarify is about the 10th offense that we talked about, not having a complete faith in chanting of the holy names, and, we still maintain the material attachment. So it's like, I feel like it is more like it's applicable to most of, especially I'm talking about myself, even after taking, the initiation, where grihasthas, and, we still have so much attachments with our kids, our homes, our cars, our lives, our relatives. So it seems like, I think I'm making this offense, like more like every day, every moment, so I mean, I know there are counteraction, some ways, you can counteract, but still, I guess, how can you not make this offense, this 10th offense, which is very critical, even if you don't want to make that offense, I think you still do that offense.
Yes. So and that's why we're not chanting purely, because the thing is that this 10th offense, we really cannot have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name until we actually experience its power, and that requires spiritual advancement. So there's no real quick way of going through these 10 offenses and relishing the holy name, other than what we are doing, the process that Prabhupada gave us, that through gradually advancing. Because to relish the holy name, you need to be free of offenses. But to be free of offenses, you also have to be able to relish the holy name, or chant the holy name nicely. So it's like gradually, little by little, it's like a teacher taught her, we move up. So as we chant, we get more and more faith. And then we have complete faith in the chanting. And only when we have complete faith in the chanting do we actually really taste the mercy of the holy name. So it's what comes first. Neither comes first. It's little by little, and that faith we really cannot artificially develop. That faith comes when that faith is developed over time. It's developed in our service. It's also the mercy of the Lord if we get that faith.
Oh, okay, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you. And the one small clarification, sadhu, who is a devotee? This is like very, very special question, and I think, we talked about that principal characteristic, surrender to the Krishna and his name. So, I mean, there are people, I guess, who are taking up Krishna consciousness and they're just starting. But obviously, some people, they have taken up Krishna consciousness for a long time, and they are more sincere. They are initiated. They have, they follow the process for like 30 years, 20 years, and I think they are in a position to think that this new person who I just cultivated, or I'm cultivating, I'm preaching. I can correct that person. But so I think everybody who is just starting into ISKCON, everybody cannot be sadhu. I mean, is there any specific definition that okay, this person is chanting 16 round, has
Mm.
taken a shelter of the spiritual master. At least we should consider this person as a sadhu. And I mean, is there any fine line? How can, because this is a very broad definition.
Mhm. Right.
So
Right. Good point. Like, what does it mean to surrender? I mean, in terms of practicality, what I find is that it doesn't make much of a difference, simply because in Kali Yuga, especially, people are very sensitive, right? They have big egos, big egos. So they're devotee or they're not a devotee. Either way, they don't take correction so well. So therefore, a mentor has to be very mild, very gentle towards the mentees. A person who's correcting has to do it in a very gentle and mild way, because people are just, in Kali Yuga, very, very sensitive. um, and the other thing is that we see actually in Prabhupada's example that when devotees were serious and they're committed, Prabhupada would actually take the liberty of being more, of chastising them more. But people who are new, Prabhupada hardly, never chastised them, because he would judge the chastisement based upon the effect that it will have. So if a new person comes in and they get chastised, they'll just leave. So what purpose did the chastisement hold? The purpose, that the only result that was gotten from it is that they left. And the purpose of chastisement is always meant to help the person who's chastised advance. And the devotees who were very advanced and were close to Prabhupada, to them, Prabhupada even once or twice shouted at them. He was sometimes very heavy with them. Why? Because he knew that they will not leave. Because Prabhupada had given them so much personal mercy, so much affection, they could take that chastisement and actually make something very good out of it. They would advance as a result of it. And so the result was they would come out even better devotees. So chastisement and its necessity and its benefit can be assessed by the effect that it has on the person. That is the basic principle. I mean, that's basically the only way for us to understand if we should or should not chastise. Just like Prabhupada gave the example that the mother will chastise the daughter, but the mother will hardly ever chastise the daughter-in-law. Why is this? Because to the daughter, the mother has a closer relationship. So she can actually chastise more. In the same way, Prabhupada would chastise the devotees that he had a closer relationship more. But to the daughter-in-law, mother does not chastise. So the relationship is a little more distant. And so same thing, the devotee will be careful with the newcomers.
So Prabhuji, so does that mean that we should assume, or we should think, not assume, but we should just consider everybody as a devotee, whoever is coming, and
No, and that's, I think that's for a different reason, you see. So that's why we still have to see them as devotees, the newer devotees, but we're just not chastising them. Even if they're not devotees, we're not chastising them because uh, we know that they will run away from Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
That's a different reason. Yeah, yeah. Who is surrendered to Krishna? That's hard to say, but there's some characteristics which we can see. Okay, this person is they're surrendered to Krishna. They're serving. Everything else is wrong about them, but they're serving. They're attached to Krishna. Like, so many devotees. I think of an example. Like, they will make, like, they're just like, uh, you know, everything is very complicated, but they're very surrendered, and so that's their main quality.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Kapil Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. But quick question. So, as you mentioned about like when there is a death in the family and the regulations around it, I've also heard similar things at the
Mhm.
time of birth in the families. There are
Mhm.
similar regulations. If you can throw some light on that.
Yeah, and I'm not the best person for these because many devotees are like Jyotish, and like they're more in tune. They know these things better. But same thing, you're absolutely right, Prabhu. When we had our children, then there's a time period like 10, 15 days until we could not go to the temple. So what the time period is, I forget completely. But there's some time period that after the birth of the child, the devotee should avoid, or the mother avoids going to the temple for a few days. On the other hand, if a pure devotee or a devotee child is there, then they may immediately want to present him to the Lord. But still, I think they're supposed to wait for a few days before going inside the temple.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Nice question. Madhuri Rasa Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat.
Hare
Uh,
Krishna.
Prabhuji, I had a couple of questions. First one, again about Sadhu Ninda.
Hmm.
We stay in a congregation with thousands of devotees. We stay in Pune with us. We stay in an apartment full of devotees.
Wow.
My neighbors are devotees. So, and most of them initiated. So I can't categorize anybody as a newcomer. So what happens many times is, since we're all living together, if you're in an apartment complex, you have maintenance issues, management issues, so many small things where we're having accepted them as devotees, we are still human beings and we act in certain ways. And it's I mean, it's such a blessing to stay with devotees all the time, but it's so hazardous sometimes because
Yes.
it's it's like, maybe 25 times a day I'm doing sadhu ninda, but someone threw the trash here, how they did it, like that, things like those. It's how to be, not paranoid about the situation of sadhu ninda in such a situation, such a setup.
25 is an acceptable number, so that's fine.
Yes. Well, um, and that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur's definition was actually really nice, and I want to share it here. Here, because he actually solved that question that you're mentioning. Yeah. If we criticize him, bear bad feelings toward him, or hear him criticized, we are involved in sadhananda. So three things: criticize him, bear bad feelings toward him, or hear him criticized. So, so the point is that correcting someone, like saying that, "Oh, Prabhu, this is not the place to throw the trash," or when you throw the trash here, then it's a devotee community. It becomes, it doesn't set a nice example for others. They'll think about devotees. Like correcting a devotee or working out a solution with a devotee or pointing out that something should be done differently, that is not sadhu ninda. This is when, so like Jesus said, hate the sin, not the sinner. So if there's a problem, an issue, and we're saying, look, that this is an issue, and Prabhu, we need to fix this issue, this problem is the problem, then that is not sadhuninda. When we criticize the person, so we say, this person is throwing trash, therefore he is trash. That is criticism, you see? So this person is throwing trash, we have to tell him not to do that. That is not criticism. But when we make the judgment on the person, we say, oh, this person is throwing trash because he's a South Indian devotee. That is criticism. Or this person is throwing trash because he's a North Indian devotee. That is criticism. Do you see what I mean? It's a difference of mood. Criticism is when we make the judgment on the person. He's doing this because he's a Marwari, or he's a this type of mentality happens a lot, and that is sadhananda. But just trying to make things work is not sadhananda. You see, so there's a big difference. Or holding the grudge. This is the other thing, that when we hold the grudge, so bear bad feelings towards another devotee. So one thing is we have a problem with someone, we talk to him, then we work it out and we move on. But when we hold the grudge in our heart, that is bearing bad feelings. So the other thing is, you'll see very advanced devotees, Prabhupada and then his disciples, I've noticed this thing, like they'll chastise someone, but then 1 minute after that, they're completely normal. They accept the person back. They don't hold a grudge against him. And materialistic people, for weeks and weeks, they won't talk. I won't talk to that person. I won't talk to that person. So what are you trying to say? That person's bad. That's right? It's the purpose is not correction. The purpose is trying to undermine the person. So bearing the bad feeling for years upon years, holding a grudge against a devotee, which I did myself, is not a good thing. That thing will burn our own heart. And by reading this, or this and other things before, a person says, no, actually, I should not bear bad. I should not hold the bad feeling. Whatever needed to be said needs to be said. But now that devotee is purified. So why am I still holding a grudge towards that devotee? Or to hear him criticized, to hear others, the banter that goes on, that other people are saying bad things about this group of devotees, this circle of devotees. So that also, we don't engage in that. Yes, Mataji, you were saying something. I
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I think even the one point that you made, to be mild while correction, maybe that's something to work on ourselves also.
The what?
Yes. You said always to be mild. In Kali Yuga, nobody likes, we all come with big egos. So
yes,
we don't like to be corrected. I see that even with children, we have to, it works better when we're mild. My second question was probably about silence during Aarti and deity worship. Especially when we involve children, it's almost impossible to be silent. Even if I'm performing Aarti, my daughter will come and she'll ask me a zillion questions about the Aarti. Or, both kids start fighting about who's playing Kartal and that happens. Right?
Yes, Mataji, it's so nice you're saying that, because I thought only my daughter does that. Right, during Aarti, it's like almost like she thinks this is a time to have a conversation, and she'll come and to start talking and this and that. No, see, that's why home worship is actually so nice and important, because in the temple worship, we cannot do this, right? If we're worshiping the temple deities, there's no question. Children have to be far away. Children have to understand they have to be in a different place. But in home worship, this is why we don't install the deities. It's best not to do pran pratishta with the home deities, because that is in training. Children are learning how to respect the deity. So we have to correct them again and again. We cannot allow them to touch the deity whimsically. We cannot allow them to talk whimsically, but they'll still do it. They'll make mistakes, so we're correcting them. So it's kind of like deity worship in training, and therefore the offense is less. Or
that's why we have deity welcoming and not prana pratishtha as such at home, right? We just welcome.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rose. Haribu.
Thank you. Very nice points. Both points were very nice. Thank you. Vivek Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you very much for explaining so many details. Prabhuji, one of the offenses that was mentioned was not to praise anyone before the deity. And also in the subsequent list of offenses, it also says not to praise spiritual master when you meet the spiritual master. How do we understand this? Because just today morning, incidentally, I don't know how that is happening. We were hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita in the temple, and Lord Chaitanya in the Gundicha pastime, a Bengali Vaishnava tries to wash his lotus feet, and Lord Chaitanya becomes angry at him because he was trying to impress Lord Chaitanya. So how do we understand these contradictions, Prabhuji? If you can throw some light, because yeah, it seems confusing.
Yes, Prabhu, it's actually amazing that Srila Prabhupada foresees our questions. So your question is actually answered by Srila Prabhupada, and I didn't get to that slide. So now I'll get to it, and we'll see what Prabhupada says on this specific issue. So I'm just going to go here. This is way at the end. Okay, so where did that? And just see, I lost it. Okay. Where was it? I think I accidentally skipped it. That's directly answering your question. I accidentally deleted it. 1 second, let me just see. Here, I have it here. Okay. Okay. So here we go. Share the screen. Here. Here. Okay. So this is the difference which I was mentioning to you, the difference between principle and detail. That how these the nam aparads are more serious, seva aparads are less serious. Some of the items that Rupa Goswami mentions are details, other items are principles. And only another pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada can help us understand which are the principles that must be followed, and which are the details that are not so important to be followed. So in answer to your question, Srila Prabhupada used to accept Guru Puja in front of the deities. And one disciple asked him about this, and Srila Prabhupada replied, "Our goal is to develop love for Krishna, and that is more important than the little rules and regulations." In other words, Srila Prabhupada thought that if Guru Puja could help us to develop love for Krishna, more than following the rule to not worship someone in the temple, it means that some principles are more important and some rules are less important. The Acharya or the advanced devotee can guide us to understand the proper perspective. So in every temple in ISKCON, we're worshiping Srila Prabhupada in front of the deities. And because worshiping the devotee is so important, and because we know that the pure devotee offers whatever they get straight to Krishna, and Krishna is, pure devotee Krishna, the complete communication, no problems there. Therefore, that principle is not being applied to pure devotees. Like even to their own spiritual masters, in ISKCON, devotees will not worship them in front of the deity, or the spiritual master will not allow in front of the deity. But in the case of Srila Prabhupada, in the case of Lord Chaitanya, who's Krishna himself, that principle cannot be followed. And therefore, the devotee knew that principle. He was trying to come and wash Lord Chaitanya's feet. Lord Chaitanya was chastising him because he was taking the role of a devotee. But the devotee was not making an offense by doing that. And Lord Chaitanya was setting an example, at the same time relishing the mood of that devotee, showing for others that we shouldn't do this. But there's nothing wrong in that case. That devotee was an associate of the Lord. He knew exactly what is right and wrong. And so he was doing the right thing by trying to wash the feet of Lord Chaitanya. In the same way with Srila Prabhupada, he being a Satyavesh avatar, he being an eternal associate of the Lord, there's no problem in worshiping him in front of the deity, but otherwise we don't do that.
So then how about praising, Prabhuji? Because the offense is not to praise the spiritual master, not to, it says. So how do we understand that?
Well, I mean, see, the spiritual master is a pure devotee of the Lord. And Even on the altar, we're offering worship to the whole parampara. So the Lord, the pure devotee of the Lord, is representing Krishna, not Krishna, but as good as Krishna. So that's okay. So the spiritual master for us is a pure devotee, and we can praise the spiritual master. But the fact is that most spiritual masters, as I was mentioning in ISKCON, they don't consider themselves in the way that Prabhupada knew his position. Like, Prabhupada, he was coming from the spiritual world, he knew that. So they will not accept praise in front of the deities. They don't accept it. And so if they don't, we don't do it. But definitely, like I was mentioning, like during the announcements time and things like that, the tradition is, and we were following this in the temple I was going to, that during announcements time, they close the curtains because, you're praising the donors, they sponsor this fee, that this should not be done in front of the deities. So always the curtains would close right before the announcements, then the announcements are made. And then after that, the curtain opens again. If there's kirtan or if there's prasad, they stay closed. So for most devotees, we don't praise them in front of the deity.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for reminding me. I missed this slide, and because of you, we got this slide. So thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Gopal Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Very nice class. I have one question and one or two comments. Um, the question is, like, when you were explaining, you first explained the don'ts, and then you had another list of 30 different don'ts and do's. So I was a little confused that what is the distinction between the two lists. They are crossing over each other a lot. So I mean, it's my silly question, maybe from a study point of view.
No, so these are two separate lists. And one thing that is very peculiar, very unique about Rupa Goswami's writings is that he really doesn't write so much as he compiles. He likes, it's already written. So all the messages that he wants to give, he compiles from different shastras. So one list was, I think, from the Padma Puran, the other one was from the Vishnu Puran. And Rupa Goswami felt both lists to be equally relevant to us, and so he gave us both of them. And there is overlap, like you're saying.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And one comment, I'm just sharing what I learned, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Or so about the dead body or somebody death in the family, I discussed with our priest or our temple. So they explain that this particular concept is related to worshipping when you are like, if you are sad or crying, right? The two are related. So if there is a demise or something happens related to you, and you are so much in the sorrow that you cannot control yourself, then you should not worship, whether it's relative or friend or whatever, it doesn't matter.
That's
So
a nice point.
and on the other hand, he mentioned that there are some devotees, they are so much elevated that they can control their senses, and even though there is a demise in their family, they are fine with that. They don't have that level of sorrow that they cannot do the worship. So for them, they don't have to really observe that rule. Now, it is a little bit contradictory, I know that, but this is what I learned. So I'm just sharing here. Maybe you can correct that.
Yes. And see, that's why there's the rule and there's the principle behind it. And what the pujari is saying could be absolutely right. That, this is like one of the principles, like you mentioned, is not to cry in front of the deity. So if you're overwhelmed with sorrow, then you should not do that. But then you're saying that, but you are saying that I think that if a person is spiritually advanced, then they can come back earlier, right?
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah, as long as you can control those emotions and you are still in the mood and proper mood serving Lord, then you can continue the service.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it could
Especially the
because
home deities. This is for the home deities actually.
home deities. I see. Okay, the home deities. Okay, that makes sense now. Yes, yes. Yeah, because I mean, as far as purification, that thought came to me also. The holy name purifies one much faster than 13 days or 15 days, right? So, as far as that waiting period, I really didn't understand in terms of purification, like why the waiting period is still important for devotees. I mean, if they chant their 16 rounds, they're already more purified than what 15 days will get them. But that's why I do like this explanation by this pujari about lamentation, because the feelings of sorrow may not go from the devotee, and so they may not serve the deity nicely because of that sorrow for 13 to 15 days. I mean, it takes about 2 weeks to recover. So it's actually a very nice explanation.
Thank you, Prabhu. And another point I would want to share about the home deities versus the temple. So when we had the deity installation at our home, one of the Mataji mentioned that it is a welcoming ceremony, not like a Prana Pratishtha, which is true. We call it as welcoming ceremony, but the pujari and our spiritual master and seniors, they give us the instructions that we should worship them as the representation of the temple deities. And in addition to that, it was explained that temple deities is like just missing the analogy perfectly, but like if you go to office, we are in the proper attire and we follow all the etiquettes. But when we are at home, we probably don't have proper attire, but still we follow the home etiquettes, not like office etiquettes. So in similar manner, the deities in the temple are fully all the principles given has to be followed, but at home they are part of the family. So when they are part of the family, like when the dad is at home, they don't wear the tie and then play with the kids. So some of these etiquettes are flexible in that. So
That
that's
is
my
a nice
understanding. That was explained to us in the installation ceremony.
That's a nice way to explain it, Prabhu. That is a nice way. Krishna is more relaxed. I mean, it's more, Krishna becomes more like a member of the family, and the deity is worshipped in that way. At the same time, Malati Prabhu, Malati Mataji, who's Prabhupada's direct disciple, she said that Prabhupada, the first thing he taught is that children should learn to have reverence towards the deity. At the same time, we should not make them playthings. So it's kind of like you're saying, it's more homely in nature, but at the same time, they are the master of the house. They're not like our kids. So many people say, oh, my deity is like my child. They're like our child, but simultaneously, they're also our masters. So the master of the home is also treated with respect. So it's kind of the balance of the two, like you're saying. But very nice point about that. It's more homely in nature. And it's just the fact. I mean, whatever we want to say, we say that's just the way it does develop. That there's a certain reciprocation between the devotee and the home deity. Yes.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Pushpanjali Mataji, you had another question.
Anandmay Krishna Prabhu has, since he already went, if he wants to go first.
Oh, yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I think my question is answered again around the same topic. Prabhu, is tattva important? Is the principle of worship important, or the love towards the deity, the supreme personality, more important? I've often had this question in my mind. And more specifically, my question was revolving kids doing their bit towards deities or for the deities. But I think you answered it in some context. You answered it. Yeah. Sometimes, they go ahead and do things and you advise them also, but it takes a little time for them to, imbibe those qualities.
Yeah. So actually on that point, if we have Gaurnita at home, because I kept on thinking of Radha Krishna, but if you have Gaurnita at home, then children can also participate in the worship. They can bathe the deities. They can, like Children should participate, but they should participate with respect. They should know that this is the Supreme Lord. If they drop them or something like that, it's a big offense. And the way we can instill that respect is like, if they do drop the deities, then we tell them, okay, you have to read a whole chapter of the Gita. I once did this. I dropped, one devotee's deities and then asked for forgiveness. What is the way to atone for it? And the devotee said, you can read a chapter of the Gita. Prabhupada said this. So like this, making them understand, okay, you made this offense so that Krishna doesn't really punish you. Why don't you read a chapter of the Gita? It'll sort of nullify it. Now, regarding your question about tattva or the worship or love, or the love or the tattva of worship, I think they're deeply connected. So if we love the deity, we will treat them in a way that is proper in worship, because we'll feel that Krishna is there. And if we're properly worshiping them, we will do it, or we will only be able to maintain it if we actually love them. So I think both of those things are really one and the same. Both, if we actually love them, if love is more important, then why won't we serve them? If we're not serving them, that means though we love them, we don't really love them. So our service and love is connected. There's one, you could say, exception to this, which Gopal Govinda Prabhu mentioned very nicely, that Prabhupada said that the temple deities, your home deities, the temple deities become your home deities and vice versa. So if we're doing service at the temple, let's say we're going for Mangalarti at the temple every day, then we don't have to do Mangalarti at home, because the worship there is transferred to the worship of our home deity. Prabhupada said all the home deities nearby, they get that worship nearby the temple. They get the worship of the temple deity, because Prabhupada wanted us to serve the temple deities. If everyone's busy serving their own home deities, how will the temples go on? So he wanted us, so he said that Krishna, the same service offered to the temple deity is offered to the home deity. So we can love them a lot and be serving the temple deities and also the home deities. To some degree, there has to be a standard, but yeah, it becomes sort of transferred. And a lot of these things, there's no black and white rule. I mean, we have to kind of see where our heart is, what Krishna is telling us in terms of our home deities. Temple deities, there's black and white rules. But in terms of home deities, like, here, now I'm at this temple in Naperville Temple, and so wonderful, so much service to do. So like here, before, my standard of deity worship was more for the deities, but now it's less, because here we're serving the temple deities and we're going to the temple every day. So there's a natural reciprocation. And then you genuinely feel that, okay, if whatever I cook, I offer to the deities, and then, I bathe them, then I don't have to do so many artiks every day, because the Lord is receiving that from the temple, because we're going to the temple for that. So there's different principles, and we have to kind of apply them according to our circumstance.
Thank you, Prabhu. Noted. Thank you, Prabhu. I kind of got my answer, but what I specifically had in mind is, with kids, I'll give you an example, and this may actually bring it up more nicely. For example, my kids are little, and they often, they would want to do some service to the deities, but I often always ask them to wash their hands, wash their mouth nicely. They'll wash their hands, but not so well their mouth, and just go ahead and do a service. They'll wash their hands in the kitchen sink and quickly go ahead and do service before doing an achman. So things like that. So I was referring to that. Is the principle so much important with respect to kids, or the love, or the tattva versus love there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We need to correct them until the point that it's still fun for them. If we correct them enough that they all, this is miserable, I always do something wrong and it's just like so difficult, then their love for Krishna will be dampened. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually said that if children don't have deities, they'll become atheists. He actually said this. He said, deities are very good for children. So we want to encourage them also. And that's the thing, Krishna will be less hard on them, and Krishna will be more hard on us, because they are children and we are not children. So Krishna will forgive them more. So I think the middle ground that you're finding is okay. Like, if they're washing their hands, but they forget to do achman once, it's not the end of the world. But as adults, we'll always do it, and gradually they'll learn and they'll seeing our example.
Okay, Prabhu. Sure. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Pushpanjali Mataji, you can go,
So
because I think the list will continue. You've been waiting.
Okay. So Prabhuji, can I message you then? It's about Sadhu Ninda. So, and I'm thinking the class is going longer and other devotees are also having questions.
No, you can
Do you-
ask the question. That's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
you can.
so Prabhuji, how do you not have ill feelings toward devotees who are trying to put you down? They'll call your Siksha gurus and tell you're not doing good because, you don't want to, you're not doing exactly what they want you to do. And you feel that they want to control you. So it's very hard not to have ill feelings.
Yes. So all of us, we are also human beings, and we do that. But one way to avoid those ill feelings is that we can think, when things like this happen, we can think that this devotee is just an instrument, and actually Krishna is trying to tell me something, or Krishna is uh, wanting me to advance, and therefore Krishna is putting me through these challenges. So like His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, he in one class he says that don't become angry at the instrument of your karma. So there's something lacking in us, and therefore Krishna is communicating it through these devotees in a very harsh way. And but but avoiding the way it's coming, what is the message that Krishna is trying to give me through this? Or or we can think that that maybe I need to speak to them, but I tell them, please don't do this, but I don't have to hold ill feeling towards them. I don't have to hold the grudge. So we can, again, we always have to be clarify the situation. Part of serving devotees is making the effort to clarify things. I mean, that is also humility, to make that effort. So that is, I think, the main thing is what is our intention, right? So is our intention that we are trying to just pacify things, or is the intention that we are actually feeling animosity towards a devotee? You see, so okay, that devotee is feeling animosity towards me, but that's their business. But if I'm in return feeling animosity, then that is sadhuninda. But if I'm just trying to clarify things, then that's not sadhuninda. So the effort to speak to your shiksha guru and clarify things and say, look, I feel that they are misreading the situation, and this is the way I see it, that is not sadhuninda.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Harinam Kirtan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dinutana.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for clarifying so many small thing, but very important. I have two questions. The first is very silly. So as you mentioned that the flowers we shouldn't offer to Krishna, those doesn't have good fragrance or good and what we get in US is like even a nice rose nice looking doesn't have any smell.
Yes.
So any take on that?
Yeah, and see, that's why Krishna puts challenges for us. Like, it's so easy to go and buy flowers, right? But the fragrant flowers, we can grow them in our garden, right? There are certain flowers here in Naperville. Nirantar Prabhu, he's the gardener, and he gardens and grows flowers for Radha Madhav. And the amazing thing is, his roses, they're so fragrant because he gets the rose plant from special places of especially fragrant roses, which I've seen also other places. There's certain breeds of roses that are very, very fragrant, and you don't get them at the store. And so he grows them, and then they use that at the temple. So yes, if we really want to please Krishna, Krishna makes it hard for us. Krishna gives us a challenge. So we can go and buy the flowers from the store, which are no fragrance, and we think, oh, we're done. No, but Krishna is more smart than we are. Krishna says, no, you grow the flowers, so we get fragrant flowers. Of course, that's the best. And if we don't have that, then we can try to purchase some flowers that are fragrant. There are different flower shops Some of them do hold fragrant flowers. Like here in Chicago, of course, it's a big place. We have Vivek flowers. And so Vivek flowers, they sell like the traditional jasmine flowers that you get in India, chameli, jasmine, all these things. And so it's nice, you have the facility here if someone is selling flowers like this. In other bigger cities, they may have other flower shops that have that. So devotees, they do a lot to find good flowers for Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. I will do that now.
Yes, yes. Oh, and there's some devotees, they get them shipped. So Vivek flowers here in Chicago, they will also put it in a box and ship it, and it comes fresh. It's amazing. So like when I was in Indianapolis, one devotee there, he had a source, and he would get them shipped, and those were the jasmine flowers. Yeah.
Sure, sure. I'll do that. Sure, I'll try. And another question was actually yesterday I was discussing with devotees, and this topic was brought, and it's related to what we are discussing. When we offer bhoga to the Lord, in the temple setting, we keep around 20 minutes, right?
Yes.
The timing. And in the homes, I have been to many devotees' home. Generally, around 10 minutes. I think in the home settings. Is there any?
You got muted, Prabhu.
Like 10 minutes, 7, 20 minutes, or
For the time period of the offering?
Yes, please clarify that.
Yes. So for home worship, Prabhu, what I do is I think that if I was eating this prasad, how long would it take me to eat it? And based on that, so like, sometimes you're just offering Krishna a glass of juice because the juice has to be offered before you can drink it. So that doesn't require a 20-minute offering because, it would take you just 1 or 2 minutes to drink the juice. Other times you're offering them full lunch. So, well, if I were to eat this, then it would be 20 minutes. So the idea of home worship and any deity worship is that we treat Krishna as a person. So Krishna is a person. And so he's a person. So we want to give him the time that he needs. Now, if we take a glass of juice and we leave it in front of him for 20 minutes, it could even be a disturbance to him because, it only takes a few minutes to drink a glass of juice. So like this, you can, of course, temple worship, there's DT handbook, and there they give the exact timings. You can follow those. But for home worship, you can just think, we just think that how long will it take me to eat this food? Give Krishna the same amount of time.
Thank you, Prabhu. Helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes. Indulekha Karuna Mataji, you had a question and you left something in the chat. If you're there, you can ask the question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandrat Pranam.
And
So, yes, Prabhuji, my question, I had two questions. One was in the offenses to the holy name. We have the 10th offense, and in addition to that, it's also mentioned that it is an offense to be inattentive while chanting. So, that is not mentioned over here. Can you please shed some light on that?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of this recently, that this thing that we struggle with so much, to be inattentive while chanting, is not even mentioned as one of the 10 primary offenses. And why is this? Why is this? And I was thinking that how in chanting the holy name, therefore, actually, it's really isn't a mechanical process. Like we can be fully attentive. Of course, we cannot really be fully attentive, but we can be really attentive and still not get the taste of the holy name. Because these first 10, like blaspheming the devotees, not having faith in the holy, these are most important. And when these are there, then Sri Nam Prabhu reveals himself to us. And when the holy name reveals himself to us, then automatically, if Krishna came in front of us, we couldn't think about anything other than Krishna, right? Automatically, our full attention goes to him. So it's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting, because Krishna gives us more blessings, and Krishna wants us to be attentive while we chant. In other words, we should not ignore Krishna. It's an offense to ignore Krishna while we're chanting. But at the same time, we have to understand that it's these 10 offenses that are really stopping us from getting the taste. So we really have to work on these 10 offenses, and then the attention will come more easily. We still have to make an effort for the attention, But I mean, like I've had this experience. If you try to really pay attention while chanting, you just pay attention, focus, you get a headache, right? You get a headache. Like it's very hard to like focus for such a long time. Pretty much impossible. You try to focus, and then the focus goes away, and then you try to focus, and the focus goes away. So it almost seems like a hopeless, completely hopeless case, and um, uh, so therefore the devotee is very keen on following the 10 offenses, because then automatically the mercy of the Lord comes, and when the mercy comes, it becomes very easy to focus on chanting.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And the second question was regarding the sadhu ninda itself.
Hmm.
So we have some trouble with some great devotee, and because we think they are a great devotee, we still don't want them to feel, to bear some bad feelings towards us, right? So in that case, is it okay for us to just completely cut that connection off and then stay disconnected, or do we have to go seek apology, or uh,
um,
like
uh, um, and you're saying the case if they don't know that we have these offensive thoughts, or
uh,
they do know?
um, they might know, yeah, they would know, of course.
Right. If they know, if the offense is known, like on both sides, that okay, that there's some, so then we try to clarify it. I mean, maybe we don't have to apologize because maybe the offense is from both sides, um, but we try to clarify it, we try to settle it. Now there's situations where a devotee is unwilling to settle it. They're feeling offended enough where they're just like, I'm not going to talk to you. So then we make an effort, we do the effort, but if they're unwilling, then then we accept that, okay, the devotee does not want to clarify. So I can beg forgiveness in my mind and move on, like or beg forgiveness, and then they're not willing to clarify, but from my side, I've done my duty. I've from my side, I've made the effort.
Okay. So if it's like, okay, we feel, okay, we thought something about a devotee, and apparently we are not so compatible anymore. So let me just move on and let me leave that connection. It is okay for us to just move on.
And see, that's why I asked you. So like if
I
we
mean,
think
there
about a
is,
devotee, no, that if we think about a devotee and we don't really get along with them, and we want to choose different association, but we haven't offended them, like they don't know that we're having these feelings, then we can just move on, no problem.
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, no offense as such has been committed.
Yes, no offense has been committed, right? And they don't really know that you're having these feelings. But if they feel, if there is some, like that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying, if there is ill will, and if there's knowledge of it, like there's been some reason for some definite thing, there's a definite split, and you're in the same congregation, and if you are not associating, it does send a message to the other devotee, like I don't like you, then it might be good good to because we don't have to associate with every devotee. That's not a requirement. We can choose our association. Some personalities will click with others more, but choosing our association, or having our circle of service, so to say, that our connection of service is different than having the negative feeling. So the negative feeling, that we can clarify, that we really like each other, all these things, but then we don't have to associate on a regular basis. That is not required. Just like
Right.
Prabhupada's God brothers, right? Srila Prabhupada and his God brothers is a very nice example for this. Srila Prabhupada greatly respected them. Srila Prabhupada would communicate with them. When they would meet, they had very sweet relationships. They would have prasad together. There's a fine. But Srila Prabhupada was not serving with his God brothers.
Yes.
Thank you. Mataji. Hare Krishna. Dhananjay Krishna Prabhu, you've had your.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. This is Jai Draupadi Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Wonderful session, wonderful session. I have so many questions, but I'll ask one question. Like Prabhuji, devotees, as we say, devotees. All devotees has different qualities, right? So some likes to read, some likes to do seva, like that. And if some thought comes in mind, right? That people doesn't know much, or like it's just time pass or something like that. This is also offense, right?
Say that again. What is exactly offense? Time.
Means every devotee has different quality, right? Some likes to reading, some likes to do seva in the sense, in the temple kitchen seva, or any seva. They are not fond of shastras, and they don't know, but they are still doing seva.
Okay.
So like sometimes thoughts come, they are doing seva, but they don't have other qualities like reading, or so as a neophyte devotees, we say, we all I'm neophyte, so like can you please tell about
Yes. So in terms of those thoughts, you're saying like is it okay to have those thoughts in terms of those devotees that they're doing seva but they're lacking in these other ways, right? Is
yes
that yes? So I was actually, and this kind of connects with the previous question that Indulekha Karuna Mataji asked, that so there's different levels of devotees, and even Rupa Goswami says it's Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttama, and then Rupa Goswami says that we should seek the association of the Uttamadhikari. For the Kanishadhikari, we offer obeisances, but we keep a distance, actually. He says we don't have to actually have their association. If the Kanishadhikaris, which is they're very interested in worshiping the Lord, which seems the situation that you're mentioning, but they're not really interested in associating with devotees or hearing and chanting with devotees, then maybe their association is not so pleasurable. And with Madhyamadhikaris, we associate. And with Uttamadhikaris, we seek their association actively. Madhyamadhikari, we associate. Kanishadhikari, we may associate, or we may just, but we still offer our obeisances to them. That's the key thing. So someone who's doing seva in the temple, we may see, okay, this person is not so spiritually advanced because they're doing seva, but they're not actively engaged in the regulated principles of devotional service. So they're not actively engaged, so they're not so spiritually advanced. They're not hearing and chanting, or they're not, the standard that we want them to be at, but they're serving. So to them, we still offer our obeisances to them. They're still a devotee, but if we feel they're not on the Madhyamadhikari platform or Uttamadhikari platform, we may not associate with them regularly. So that's one point. The second point is that a devotee does not neglect another devotee. And neglect is the most basic form of offense. So like people say in the modern world, they say passive aggressive. That if I'm neglecting someone in my family, it's another way of offending them, even though I haven't said anything to them. So Krishna's too smart, right? If we neglect a devotee and we think that, oh, I didn't offend him, I'm just not, I think I'm better than him, or I didn't want to associate with him, then that could be another form of offense. It could be our false pride that's making us think that I don't want this devotee. And I'm not offending him, but I don't want him around. But that is still an offense. Neglect is a form of an offense. So we have to be careful that we're not neglecting a devotee. But there still is a difference between neglect and actively choosing association. We may not associate with a devotee, but we're offering obeisances, we're nice to them, so we're not neglecting them. And with another devotee, we are actively getting association. that is okay, but we should not also, we have to, it's just a very fine line. That's why it's been difficult to answer this question. There's a fine line between neglect and um, choosing one's choosing advanced association.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Like, neglect would be like, we're serving in the temple, and we just don't like one devotee because the way they look, or the language they speak, or the type of prasad that they eat, and so we just don't include them in the different activities that happen in the temple, or we don't include them in some. So that is a form of neglect. Of course, none of us are doing this. Just we're talking about these things in terms of concepts, since you're asking. And choosing association is like, okay, this devotee is an advanced Vaishnava, this is a nice Vaishnava, let me read Bhagavatam with them every day. So that's choosing one's association.
Yes, thank you. And I have seen, like, as you said, we should read Bhagavatam with them. Yeah, I have seen so much difference. Some of the devotees like suddenly changed. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. So that's also, we have to, they change and all these things happen. So again, whatever other devotees are doing is their business. From our perspective, we try to respect all the devotees, but then we can understand, okay, this is association that is very valuable. And so, and it may change, like you're saying, it may change, things change also. Yes. Okay. So I think we've quite fast our time period. So maybe we'll stop at this point. And next time we will start from where we left off. I'll post the homework tomorrow or day after tomorrow. And we look forward to your association again. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.